In this lecture, I'd like to show you how we can use SQL injections to read any file in the server. So even if the file exists outside the www root, we'll be able to read it exactly like a file disclosure vulnerability. And we'll also see how we can use it to write files and upload them to the system, just like a file upload vulnerability. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is the read in the file. And I'm going to set everything to null here. So I have my statement here, and I'm going to set select one. I'm going to leave number 2 because I'm going to do stuff in that. And we're going to do another 3 nulls here. So null, null, null. So we have select null, something null, null, null. So 5 because we have 5 records when we did the order by. And instead of selecting something, remember in the third video we did select database, for example, and it showed us the current database. What I want to do now is I want to do another function, and that function is called load file. And in here, I'm going to set the file that I want to load, and I'm going to use the same file that we had a look on in the file inclusion vulnerability, and it was etc password. So we're trying to read that file, and our statement is union select that file, and that's it. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to inject it here, and I'm going to add my %23, which is my comment. And as you can see, we managed to read all the information, all the content of etc password, even though it's not in the web root, so it's stored in etc password. So we can read anything in the server from other websites, from other files, anywhere in the server we can read it by specifying the full path of that file. The next thing I'd like to show you is writing to the server. So we're actually going to write stuff to the server, and this is very useful because you'd be able to write any code you want. So for example, you can write the code for a PHP script, you can write a code for a shell, a virus, or a PHP code to get a reverse connection to you. So it'll basically just act like a file upload vulnerability. And to do that, I'm going to write the code that I want to do here, and I'm going to call that, for example, just example. And we're going to use a function called out file. So we're going to do into out file, and then we're going to specify where we want to store that file. Now, in best case scenarios, you'd be able to write to your web root, and that will mean that you can access the file through the browser and execute it. So you can upload a Weebly file and then connect to it and do stuff like that. So let's try to do that first. So we're going to do it in var www, and that's our web root, so we'll be able to access things through it. Or you can put it even var www and then put tilde after it to store it in there. So the command is very simple. Again, union select, make sure you set everything to null so that nothing gets written to the file except what you put in here. And I put example, and it's going to be stored into a file in var www tilde, and we'll call that example.txt. Let's try to run this and see if it works. Now this didn't work, and if you come down here, you'll see that SQL or MySQL is not allowed to create or write to this directory. So the problem is the permissions that we have don't allow us to write to this particular location. So just to test this exploit, I'm going to change this location to TMP, which is the temp. And you'll see that you can actually write to temp. So in real life scenarios, it depends. You can try it and see if you're able to write stuff or not. In this, we're trying to write to temp now. And if we read in temp, if we clear that, and then ls and temp, you'll see that we have something called example. And if we try to read that, you'll see that it contains the content of what we did before, which was the normal selection that you'd see. So what you see for putting the stuff for admin. And then it showed us what's in there, which is example, which is what we wanted to write to the file. Now you can obviously get rid of the admin and the admin pass stuff by just putting a wrong username, and nothing is going to be displayed here. So the only thing that you'll see is the output, which is example. But again, this is only useful if you're able to write to your web server so you can access it and then use your shell or use your payload and further exploit the system.